want to talk about my spiritual path as a Satanist, and just as the whole overall perspective of all like the rules on being a Satanist instead of the rules that people think Satanists live by. So I'm just going to talk about it. So, what is a sin? A sin is rejecting or knowing God in the world He created, rebelling against Him by living without reference to Him, not being or doing what He requires in His laws, resulting in our death and the disintegration of all creation. So, what is sin, you guys? Sin, in my offense, of course, I hope you can hear and understand everything I'm saying. Sin is actually just a rebelling against God's commands. That's what I believe sin is. And I've known no man on this earth is God. God is the center of the universe, and that's who God is. He will be the center of the universe because isn't the most powerful one will be the person that is declared in the universe. And that's the reality of truth. So, sin to me doesn't really apply as much because me being honoring God and honoring His tribute in life and in death, that, it's just fully embracing the embodiment of what God would ask of me as what's considered sin under His terms. So in my terms, I think self defense is not a sin. It's not a sin for me to defend myself. It would be an act of wronging if I just allowed people to do something against me and I didn't defend myself and retaliate on something that someone did upon me. That is what I think would be sin, because now I'm rejecting God's commands. God made the spiritual laws of the universe for a reason, because it's all crafted by His law of divine oneness, because there's only one man creator in this universe who has that much strength of ability to bring life and death onto the creation of this world. And that is who God is the replication of, as a symbol of what God would be, because He would be the center of the universe and everything will all flow around that center of the universe. So now this is a deeper topic also. My name's Nefertiti. I'm the real person of Nefertiti, meaning this is really me in my second life. So just know I was here on this earth about 3,500 years ago, where as me and my husband, we made a new worship of one God as the sole creator of this universe, and He is the sole creator of this universe, Aten. Because He is the sole creator of the universe. So, because He's the sole creator of the universe, we worshipped Aten in the earliest dynasty of Egyptians as ancient Egyptians. We were the first to live under Aten's lifespan and Aten's ruling for life and humanity. We were the first ones me and my family were the first ones, me and my husband, King Aten, were the first ones who embodied the worship of one God and as our sole religious revolution. And I am Nefertiti. I'm not going to go to a revolution about who God is and who's God's not. I'm just going to keep speaking the facts of the scenario of truth and allow people to digest the knowledge that they need to know. So this was 3,500 years ago. This is all verbatim in facts. Nefertiti and her husband were known for a religious revolution in which they worshipped solely the sun disk as the only God. And with my husband, also I reeled as myself also, and then my son took him on and took over after I died, and his father left. But this is all based on just one sole creator. So, because we seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all the things that will all also be added. If we live by God's truth and we understand God's ruling in our life, and we keep going for God's ruling in our life, then we are seeking God's revelation of truth for our lives. And that's where I think God asks us every night and day what God's commands would be for us to search for his righteousness of truth. So, of course, you guys, one more time, I am here. This is me, ancient dynasty as a bust figure. Because remember, we made a religious revolution, me and my husband, of one God worship. And in centuries long before told that the revolution has just became known, that there's only one creator and one God. And more people are discovering the fundamentals of spirituality in the terms of religion. So yes, you guys, it is me. I am here, Nefertiti, the second coming of Nefertiti. They call me the Antichrist because of the embodiment of only one God worship. And, in this ringing in life, people want to worship different God, but there's only one because I came from 3,500 years ago. And there was only one God that we proclaimed as God. Now I came 1,000 centuries later, and then when don't have deeper knowledge into this subject of who God is and who God's not, because as the more people are discovering every day and healing from this discovery that religion is religion. There's a lot of people and pastors that talk about religion because they want to talk about their own agendas for religion because it's men. Men make their own declaration as they think as agendas for women. So this is basically me being here and reminding people that yes, I am here. I am realistically the truth of God because there's the afterlife that God says, thou shalt live again. But not everybody knows ancient Egypt's dynasty of how the next life begins. But, this is once more time of clarification for people while I'm getting into these topics. So they know that they are talking to Nefertiti, so you guys know who you're speaking to. Yes, you guys, I am a lion. I know. Hear me roar. I know. It's cute though. But back to the philosophy of Satanism, and that's about me, because it was just me describing on the embodiment of just letting people know about me and how the connection of Satanism also goes into my bloodstreams and everybody else's bloodstreams too, because it's in reality, it's a reality term. It's about everything's in God's kingdom. It's the reality term of God's kingdom because God is the sole creator of this universe. So everything is in his kingdom for a purpose and a reason. So yes, the search of Nefertiti. You guys found me. I know my lips were pretty then and now too. I just don't keep up with maintenance of them. It's only just because I don't want guys constantly keep looking at me as my sexual appeal statement. Because obviously I am someone that you will respect in this world, not someone you could dance around in this world and think that she would dance for a show. Yeah, that's not how I am, and nobody would just disrespect that name of who I am. So this is just a statue or portrait because sun god worship, was in the emptiness viewpoint in somebody else's mind because it wasn't really emptiness because we were worshiping a god. We were worshiping the most powerful god of the universe as the sun disk because the sun's with us morning just as the sun is wholeness at night, just in a darker shade, because it's now the moon replication versus the bright star, but it's still a star because it's still a signal of life and death in our universe, so when we see the moon, it's like night for us to know that, okay, when you go in the house, when you go to sleep, it's nighttime. But when we see the sun, we know that it's morning again, so we need to go back on our quest. So yes, but this was just the worshipping of Aten from me. Remember, in ancient Egypt, we also created our first religion, the new religion under God. So this is just the religion. I am the key founder of the religion. Neferneferuaten was the first one who made this discovery of the religion with her husband. But her husband was, a busy man also. So she was the one who put forth the energy to make sure this religion stands out as such. That's why there's a photo of me in Egyptian hieroglyphics. There's prophecies all written to me also of the second coming of me. So this just gives you the embodiment of truth one more time that yes, Nefertiti was the one who created the religion under the sun god ruling. I was the one who created it. So of course, I was the one who created it. So Ra is the god of the universe. This is ancient Egyptian beliefs and speaking on ancient Egypt from 3,500 years ago, from 7,000 years ago, of ancient Egyptians' belief of civilization. And this is the discovery as such of knowledge. So the sun is God because the sun is the only one with the most holiest powers in the universe to make everything go as divine's way of life and in divine way as death. Because God is the center of the universe, and this is just the sun god worship because we worship the sun god because that's why the sun god's like put it as the Egyptian template to remember because the sun is what is a replica to remind us that just because today ended doesn't mean tomorrow may not be as brighter day as tomorrow, because the sun god is lighting the way every way so we can reveal his knowledge and heal into this command of life. That God is with us, God is always with us. Religions and stuff like that, they just try to take part in their own viewpoint of what they want a creation of God to be in their mind. Like, yes, I honor the gods and goddesses, yes, but there's only one creator that's the strongest creation in this whole universe. There's only one stronger creation. There's no other creation that's deemed as a human form on this earth that's a replica of God. There's nobody else in this human formation of life that is the replication of God. Yeah, birth defects happen, but that's in God's command of why it happened. Not, oh, it's just like, yeah, that's like when people have autism. Autism, yes, it's a birth defect of some sort, yes, but it still was in God's command for what coexisted in his ruling. Because he wanted to bring life and he wanted to bring death, but he also wanted to people to seek knowledge in life and in death, from different political and different viewpoints in life and death. So that's why none of us are created perfect. We are or have our own flaws of creation. Because God never told us to be perfect of all divine oneness. God never said that. God made us in his divine oneness to him. That's why in ancient Egypt they have the statues where we look like we have misshaped heads, like aliens type beings. But we're not aliens. We're normal civilization of humans is with a deeper acknowledgement of our imagination, a deeper rooted imagination as such. It's just a deeper connection towards our imagination as an ancient Egyptian philosophy and civilization concerned. Because yes, with that we made new medicine, with that we made makeup, with that we made so many things of dream possible versus what the core knowledge that people want us to know, and the only knowledge that they want us to seek out as knowledge is what they told us. But that's not what's told, because remember, in European industries, when Europeans tried to take over ancient Egypt, when they invaded ancient Egypt, remember, they brought devastation to this whole economy of this viewpoint because they wanted to, of course, this was political structures of powers, political structures of powers of countries, so they wanted to declare themselves as the only one of beneficial of news of knowledge from God. So they invaded ancient Egypt, because ancient Egypt was going through a new pharaoh, my uncle. He was a very elderly man. They kept saying he's my father, but no, he wasn't my father. Amenhotep III was my father and Queen Tai was my mother. It's also, if you look under younger lady, you can also understand that knowledge too, because everything I'm speaking on is straight facts of evidence. So, yeah. But this is the sun god back to his glory of light. This is the sun god. And then this is God at night defending the world at night also. Because, remember, God proclaimed his throne morning. He claimed his throne in morning, but he reclaimed his throne at night. So even in morning and night, God's claim of humanity is still such. It's all in the spiritual terms of divine oneness, morning and night. Because if God made a promise to Satan, what would that promise be? If God made a promise to Satan, what would that promise actually be? So we just did some fact finding just one more time for people who were on their bias of nature. So yes, Amenhotep III was Nefertiti's biological parent. Um, Queen Tai was La Nefertiti's biological mother. Well, Nefertiti. My mother in this life is a different creation of being, but in the old life of where my soul originates from, it was a different mother. So because I'm fast forwarding, but my name now is La Nefertiti. It just means the second coming of Nefertiti, La Nefertiti. Just, make your ring a bell. But yes, so her parents were Amenhotep III and Queen Tai. And her children was Aten. That was her son, and that was her only son that she had. And one more time, this is just what they revealed, that the younger lady, Imagery, looks reveals as such as tribute. This is the younger lady. This is the younger lady. Just sort of connection of viewpoint for people who think I'm saying false topics and false beliefs versus actual knowledge that's true. This was my husband also. Like, yeah, because remember, we were hated. So, in order for one of us to come back the next ring of life, it had to be some falsehood of evidence that's became. We're grown, everything's been discovered. This is because I was his sister, and this is me, and this is him. That's why I said about neglated heads, of imagery of long-bladed heads, as we're aliens to this species of humanity. But because we are, in God's command, we're like aliens. But in reality, we're not aliens because we all speak different tongues and we speak different topics because that's how God individually made us as human beings. He made us in a formation of differences because that's just what we're supposed to be in this embodiment of God's divine loveness for this world. So this was my husband. Yes, he had an elongated chin. Of course, it's just proclaiming the unbeauty, but God sees it as beauty. But in our temperament, we don't see it as beauty as such because we have a big chin or we have a long nose or whatever the issue is. But in God's beauty, in God's formation, he made us exactly how he made us for a reason of his purpose and this divine oneness of ruling. So it's beautiful to God, but it may not be been beautiful to someone else's creation, but it was beautiful to God's. So, and then of course our children, yes, that's how it all adds up more, because Simkara was me. I was Simkara, just get that out the way. But all my husband's children all came from me. We had 6 daughters. And then we had one son also, but people didn't want to disclose that because remember, I was hated because they didn't like a woman king taking over. Nobody liked that idea of a woman as a period as king. And that's why they said like in who she would be related to. That's her grandparents. That's not her grandparents. That's her mother and father. Because that's like the husband to Mir and that's Nefertiti's daughter, and you guys already know Simkara. That was Nefertiti, and it also was in fact Nefertiti herself, raised in a king status. She shared a throne with her husband at the end of his life. And then also with the ending viewpoint, a topic to be made also from ancient Egyptian philosophies and beliefs. So since we're talking about all ancient Egyptian belief of reality of humanity, this was my husband and me and our daughters just under the umbrella of God, because God was the umbrella term of our life, because God gave us each day a new day and then each day a new night. So that's why in this photo right here, it won't open. This photo right here, where you see my husband and then you see the glorious light of God and our children also shining under us, because that's how God will want everything as a foundation, all under divine will of God. So that way God's lighting can be seen. So that way people could see God's light. So so this was the solar disc, and this is me, and this is my husband, this is me, but this is still me because he's mine, so it's still me. So yeah. But no, this is our daughters and some of our three girls under God. And then of course about my husband, because he had a birth defect. That's why you see like he has big whited hips, because it's genetics. So everything's based in genetics, and especially when you have DNA ancestry from cousins and cousins inbreeding from national viewpoints on a consensual regular basis. Of course, there is some genetic defects that can occur also. But remember, in ancient civilization, there was no judgments. It was what it was. There wasn't a big judgment on who you are and who you're not. It was what it was. Not, oh, in the new century of 21st century, it's now, oh, if your hips are this wide, you don't know what you are. Or stuff like that, in the bias of judgmental terms as humanity try to made from philosophy, from the Bible news of reality of light of God and everything else, the light of God, the light of God, light of God, light of God, you know. So yeah, but of course, there's nothing to be a matter of about having a birth defect. It's okay. God made us like that. That's what God made us to be. God didn't make us to be in a perfect image of plastic surgery and makes us in the image that everybody will like us. God didn't make us as such to be liked by everybody. God made us to be able for his divine oneness of purpose in our life. My husband had his purpose, and I had my purpose too. That's why we all calculated everything in God's divine purpose for our lives and humanity. So, just so you guys understand again that I'm just sharing the news from this copyright material, meaning I'm not using it in any type of viewpoint. I'm just speaking on it as like for my own reasonings, but it's still, this is their permission of use of it. Because in Second Corinthians 4:4, New Living Testimony, our translation, Satan, who is the God of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand the message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God, because he represents the most gentle side of God, while Satan represents the more harsh, critical side. But God represents the whole loving and whole overview viewpoint of hurt and love at the same time of God. But it's all in God's divine oneness of truth. It's all in God's divine oneness of truth. So it's all in God's divine oneness is truth. I was born intersex. And intersex gets judged in a community because they feel like we don't fit God's term of creation. But in reality, when after everything we just spoke about, everything is in God's creation as subject. So it's not a back of viewpoint of what she would be or what she's not. She's a woman born with a pickle. She was born like that as a birth defect terms, not someone who just shapeshifted herself into a different formation for people's structure of view to like and see her as such in this lighting. This is just me in a natural face, and just relaxing, and just relaxing and laying down because everything, God got me on everything. God got me on everything and He backs me up on everything also. And He's happy that I make these days of every day of I living to at least bring His knowledge into some fruitation. But I don't fight for everything as it did in the last century, because God's declaration has already been made. He wants healing to be restored, but He also wants people to seek His knowledge to be restored. So I don't have to go back and forth in that viewpoint to fight everything in this life again as I did last time, because remember I was hated based on this discovery that God is who He is, so yeah, but this is just a photo of me. This is a valid photo of me also. That's why it's in my I can edit my photos, my tattoos, my hair. I still wear the same hair right now. And then yeah, so and then my eyes color because it's about my ancestry tree of who I am, so people can relate the equation, not just say I just put because this is not makeup one, so that's my natural face, and I was born intersex as an intersex woman, just born with a birth defect because it was in God's command. I really want to tell you thank you for knowing these news with me about God and why I am a Satanist, and why in ancient philosophies and ancient hieroglyphics of civilizations, we were still going through the terms of who God is and who God's not. Just because a Bible was written and a book was written about God's glory doesn't mean all of the knowledge proclaims itself as a knowledge to be beforehand to know. Because remember, God's news was the second coming of man. And the second coming of man, as you could see, was Nefertiti, was the second of God's command. So God's tribute to ancient Egypt civilization will remember once more of God's command. So everybody can remember again what God's command is in this world. So everybody remembers God's command in this world. So they could remember God's sole divine plan for this world, for healing to occur into this nation. And that way everybody understands that God is here and God has always been with us. But all the news from generations of ancestors who wanted to know who God is, remember, it went through like, oh, the religion of this, the religion of that, the religion of this, the religion of that. There's so many different religions. There's so many. There's so many different religions. But in the tribute to God, there's only one religion that brings forth of God's glory of news. Just so you guys remember. This was the seed of God in morning, the eye of Ra. And this is the seed of God at the eye of night, which is Horus. So that way God sees you in morning and He also sees you at night. And it all is the foundation of Ra as God. Morning, He's Ra, a glorious, beautiful, divine light. But at night, He's Horus, a dark, destructive, not revengeful as such, but a dark, destructive, revengeful type of nanner. Remember, there's only one God. So it's this God in His dark days of light, but now in His darker formation. So I hope you guys had fun learning about this knowledge with me about ancient Egyptians' beliefs and civilization. I want to say thank you for learning this. But just know God's light is through us all, so that way we all could seek God's knowledge. It's a spiritual birthright. Remember, we think of ourselves as spiritual beings in a spiritual world, where there's materialistic gains, but there's also gains that are shortcoming and gains that are long-term gains, because it's all in a divine oneness of law, life and death, because we all live and we all will see one day no more. But in the glory of God news, I'm thank you for you guys for listening to me. and knowing why I am a satanic witch and why I worship the most holiest power of the universe, both morning and day and night, and the keeper and gatekeeper of hell, and the person who resides in both hell and in earth as hell, as the embodiment of what God's symbol for life to be, to know. May God's light shine so bright, so that way you may heal, but may a healing occur into knowing of God's life and knowing God's light for you to know in God's glory. So may healing occur, so that way you may see God's glory and God's purpose for your life can be declared for God's eyes to see. And one more time, I, as a Pharaoh, Neferneferuaten, I am just a spokesperson that God left in command to take charge in his operations in life, because that's just what it will be. It's just you're God's leader of learning what people should know in civilization. You know, that's how like Queen Cleopatra, she was a good queen because she helped break grounds for my country to find all these wonderful instruments, and she helped bring civilization to civilization. However, me and my husband was hated because we had the belief of one God. So of course that set a record tone of heretics, because it feels like we're deemed as immature and we're not deemed as responsible and educated. But as you guys see each day and night how everything unfolded each day and night, that we're getting closer and closer to learn about God and what God's purpose for us to be. We're not here for a long time, so God's glory of light will show you that it's all for the reasonings of what he established for us to learn in this creation of life. As a spiritual life coach, I am just a therapist. I just help people learn about the light of God. Of course, there's some people, the non-believers, but may they rest assured learn this belief one day, to be soon, to be too. That God's light shines bright each day and night, so that way you can reveal the knowledge that you should see in God each day and night, versus what people want to person God to be for their own glorious for news, so they can get glory in the news that they're giving. You know, because remember, slavery didn't do much for women. You know, it was more of a man's movement than a woman's movement. You know, but in this life, as a female born with my genitalia disorder, I have the declaration of what movement I start, because I am a birth woman. I am regarded as a symbolic woman in this whole universal structure from ancient Egypt all the way from the new dynasty of life, of what a woman empowerment coach will look like. You know, I mean, of course, I respect your religious terms, but you came to my channel to learn my news, and God's glory of light will be the news. So I want to say thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next.